what a typical student comparing engineering with architecture or even any other course, be it CA or be it civil services, how do they know that architecture is for them?
I have personally found that almost I have taught for many, many years now. I have never found anyone who has not loved something within the architecture profession. Okay. It's very
That's
rare that you'll find somebody who's absolutely hated it. I mean, literally, of all the thousands of students that I've taught now, there may have been 5 or 6 who have dropped out. Primarily because it's such a wide ranging, holistic profession, everybody is able to find their way of understanding it, their way of entering it, their own unique perspective in what interests and excites them. Says that emerge from architecture can range from the extremely technocratic, which is completely, surveying or engineering oriented stuff, to extraordinarily creative art, design, painting, all of these things, to ones that are mediating between the two. Even within the profession, there are so many different roles that you can play, whether that's as a landscape architect, as a planner, as an urban designer, thousands of different ways in which you can work with it. So I generally find that architecture as a course, it, uh, it offers you the space to become who you really want to be, no matter what your various tendencies are. The difficulties are that you have to script your own narrative. That is a
yeah.
responsibility that you have. Nobody else can do it for you. The profession will come to you in preset model saying, this is the way you're supposed to be an architect. It will do that
Mm.
because that's what the profession
Yeah.
is about. However, even within that, the
Mm.
possibilities of the way that one can make a career out of architecture is incredibly large.
Yes.
And come to think of it, really, there's so many engineering colleges in the city today. And most of these engineers are not practicing engineering as far as the eye can see. They're largely working as within some MBAs or some other kind of thing anyway. So if you want to do that, even for that, architecture is a better course to do. At least it allows you to see the world in more interesting ways.
Yeah. That's correct. What we study in college does not define what we practice in life.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
I don't think the act of education is anything. I don't think acts of education are to feed into the industry as it currently exists. Because
Hmm.
and you don't need 5 years of training for an engineer. If
That's
this is the job of education, then just dump somebody in an office and within 6 months they'll learn how to kind of do the work of the office. The job
right.
of education is to make people who are agile, intelligent, empathetic, people who are critical thinkers, then of course provide them with the necessary amount of skills so that when they are out, they can intervene in the world. If I have to train somebody to work in a developer's office, I don't need to train that person. What is it? A developer comes with a set of rules and guidelines, set of typical plans.
Right.
Important for us to think that the role of architectural education and the role of an architect overspills that of the profession's models as it exists today. It's about also defining new frameworks within which the profession itself can practice. And I'm not speaking out of the air. There have been so many architects in this country who have
Hmm.
really been able to stretch those boundaries, who've been able to demonstrate new ways of thinking about architecture, new ways of practicing.
So I have been meaning to ask this question for long. I have been talking to many practitioners. Some of them have said that education's role is is only to create creative minds and not to train them for skill, which is essentially to create employable architects. But many practitioners also say that architecture graduates these days are not employable.
Hmm.
So where do we draw the line of what is the exact scope of work for an educational institute?
Yeah, it's always a difficult kind of line to kind of play with. But there's something kind of strange about that presumption. And that is a presumption that has really haunted not just architectural education, but education in general. Is this
Yes.
line that we make between the hand and the mind. Okay. Saying that
Hamburger?
hand and the mind. You know,
Okay, okay.
we imagine that there are two kinds of people, the thinker people and the doer people. The thinker people are amazingly creative, but they don't necessarily work with their hands and they make ideas. Doing people are like, fairly run of the mill thinkers, but they just are very, very good at makers. Now, this is a mythology that first needs to be dismantled. It's a really important thing to dismantle because it is a replication of a sort of class hierarchy concerning the thinkers and the doers, the Brahmins and the others. So, first thing to dismantle is that is the way the world works. Okay.
Okay.
Making is thinking, doing simultaneously. Then it's not self. If you start thinking of, if we think of architecture as a craft, okay, yeah. As a craft, when was the last time a craftsman sat and thought about his pot and then sat and made it? The thing happens as you're able to think about it and make it at the same time. That is what architectural thinking is meant to be like. The same thing goes with a novelist. You don't think about writing, you write, and as you're writing, you're constructing it.
Yeah.
The thing about the architectural profession is that it's imagined that it is a profession that lies in studios, and the world of building is something that happens outside those studios. But even within the studios, the act of drawing, the act of making is also an act of craftsmanship. The division of labor has assumed that the architect draws and the contractor builds. But the drawing is an act of making. So I would say that is where the difficulty lies. The presumption of critical thinking is not employable. Employability as those that just are dumb. I mean, the whole thing is kind of a skewed perspective.
So basically, nothing is black and white. Everything is gray.
I think it is a good architecture school must treat both of these simultaneous. Acts of thinking and acts of doing are the same thing. They are not different things. They can't be schools that say, we are only training people to do critical thinking. Okay, but critical thinking through what? It's through the act of making. Right? They can't also be architecture schools that say, ye sab theory chodo. Hame to sirf you want to make people to plug into the industry. Then you are not necessary as a school. Okay. The industry will teach you. You are supposed to, what is your mandate, my dear people? Your mandate is to try and participate in the world to make the world better. Much of our building industry today, unfortunately, does not make the world better. If you're simply going to plug into this industry that is effectively creating environmentally hazardous and absolutely unlivable environments, then you are, in my opinion, not really an architect.